you do that. So, but anyway, so yeah, you and me. Excuse me, man. I don't know. Ouch. I don't know if you know. Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. I am John, and I'm here with Tom. Joseph is out this week. He's out being the good man that we all know him to be, and we're excusing him. He has an excused absence this week, and so Joseph, do what you're doing, brother. We love you, man. Of course, Tom and I are here. Tom, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. My technology isn't so great. I'm hearing you, but all I see right now is a blue dot that says done speaking. And
So
I'm
does
not
that
touching
mean
it. I
you are
have
done
no idea.
speaking, or I'm
Yeah,
done speaking?
it's constant, so it's not flashing on and then flashing off. It's just this big round blue polka dot, and in the middle, done speaking.
So
So
for those who are
I'm on my
watching,
phone. Yeah, because I'm still trying to get my computer going.
yeah, for those of you who are watching, then you notice Tom looks a lot thinner this week on the screen. He's about this thin as opposed to usually taking up the whole screen. So good job, Tom. Good job. Good job.
That's
I'm sure there are
a,
people at
that's
church who would want that blue dot and say, "Are you done speaking yet, John? Are you
yeah,
done?" But
yeah.
Tom,
I will say I'm a little bit thinner because every week when the baseball team's in town, I lose weight. Uh, so so that is also what's going on here. Now let's see. I'm trying to see if I can ever get my computer to work. All right.
well, we'll see what
So
happens, man.
what are we doing today?
That'll be the most anticipating and most anticipated part of the podcast today. Will Tom's computer make it alive? Tom, how was your week, brother?
I had a good week. We had our men's barbecue on Friday. I
Mhm.
was peeling potatoes and eggs on Friday as we prepared, and it was just you know it's interesting. In this case, we were preparing a meal, and we weren't sitting down for a meal. And when you're together eating, or in this case, uh, working so everyone can eat, you get to know people pretty well in those situations. And it was a
Sure.
good conversation, good conversations.
Good, good. Yeah, they put you on potato duty, huh? You're gonna work your way up to eggs next year, maybe, and maybe they'll let you pack bread the year after that. You got to work your way up the brisket barbecue fundraiser ladder, Tom.
Well, I'm happy with peeling potatoes. I don't want the next job up.
Very good, very good. Yeah, that was fun. It's always a lot of fun. So, my week, I don't want to say routine. I did have a funeral, but other than the funeral preparation and the funeral service itself, fairly routine, fairly quiet, nothing out of the ordinary, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
I don't need out of the ordinary weeks all the time, So
So I saw you celebrated a birthday yesterday. At least I saw it this morning, and I'm assuming it was posted yesterday.
that was on Friday.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Friday was my 1 year birthday. When you go through a stem cell transplant, they tell you you are quite literally reborn. They take all your stem cells out of your body and they put them back in, and you're born again. And so yeah, that's my first birthday, and celebrated it by moving my mother-in-law. That's what we did on Friday all day. She moved from one apartment to another. So but yes, happy birthday to me. And I do live it up. I have two birthdays now, and I'm good with two birthdays, brother. I like having two birthdays. One in the spring and one in the fall.
Well, I was thinking, my guess is you've got three birthdays. Although you may not remember the one, I know I do. That born again in the John 3 sense uh,
Uh-huh.
in January 1972. So even as a newborn Christian, I've in my 50 or yeah 50th, at least 50 years ago. So in fact, that it's coming up on 53. It's been 53 years. So
I can pinpoint the month and the year. I don't know if I can go date. I didn't know that was a thing. I remember like after I did start, getting really involved in church, people say, "Oh, my date was," and I was like, "Oh, I never got the date. I could go back to the year and the month. That's about where I'm at." So I can tell you it was Holy Week too. So
okay.
there, it should be easy to find out, but that date. But anyway. All
I
right,
always
Tom.
have to, I always have to look and say, okay, Saturday, what Saturday was in 1972 had a 20 in it. I think it was January 23rd. I always think
Uh,
it was 22nd, 23rd. But anyway,
all
okay.
right. It's good to remember those dates. That's okay. That's real good.
Yep.
So, Tom, do you use AI at all?
It, I think it just happens naturally because I know I'll ask a question and I'll have the kind of the AI short answer
Hmm. Hmm.
summary or whatever. So I cannot help but use it. It's not like I look for it; it looks for me.
Oh, there's a message
And
there, right?
it may be the problems I'm having with my phone and my computer.
AI is revolting on Tom right
Yeah.
now as we speak. Do you use Chat GPT at all? Are you a Chat GPTer?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. Okay.
If
I use
if
Chat.
I'm doing that, it's by accident.
I use Chat GPT for a few things here and there, ideas for like uh, worship backgrounds. The other day for the church, the choir's cantata, I had the list of names and I just had the whole list and I always put them in alphabetical order. I didn't feel like doing all that. So I asked Chat GPT to put it in alphabetical order for me, just things like that, maybe if you had I don't know, an administrative assistant, that would have tasks to help you like that. So that's how I use it mostly. But whenever I use AI, I am one of those people who are polite with AI, Chat GPT. So when Chat GPT put that list in alphabetical order for me, I said, "Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it." Yeah, I just, I've always done that. The joke is, yeah, that way when AI takes over and the robots come alive, they'll remember you as a kind person and have some mercy on you. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know, but anyway. But here's something we found out. The old phrase, kindness doesn't cost much. Is that how it goes? That's something like that.
I don't know that. Is that the whole thing, or is there more?
No, it's just that idea. Well, kindness, it doesn't cost you anything to be kind, right? Kindness costs you nothing. That whole idea. In other words, smile. What did that cost you? Well, apparently it does cost to be kind to Chat GPT. It has become second nature for many Chat GPT users to say please and thank you. I'm one of them. But this seemingly innocuous display of manners comes with a cost, a significant one at that. See, what we may not realize when we are conversing, if you want to say that, with ChatGPT or any of the other
With
large,
technology.
yeah, that's there's something behind that, and there's a whole process, and there's a, you know, computer somewhere, right? It's probably Tom's laptop. That's why it's, bogging down today because it's got so much to go through. But
It's so much energy that it's using that we're about to have a brownout here.
that's So every time, you ask it to do something, you ask it to correct something, whatever you ask it to do, it does that task. And then when it's finished and you say thank you, apparently this behavior accounts for tens of millions of dollars annually in electricity costs for the company
Hmm.
just by being polite to Chat GPT.
Okay.
So are you still polite then if you know it's costing somebody a lot of money?
Well, you know, I would rather continue proper behavior than to, I was going to say, keeping your eyes on eternity. It's not about dollars and cents.
Okay, that's a good preacher response. I like that, Tom. According to a study by the University of California, a 100-word response consumes 140 watt hours of energy, which is enough to light up 15 LED bulbs for an hour. And with millions of daily requests, of course, the costs quickly add up. This survey says that in late 2024, 67% of American users said they are polite to their chatbot, and 55% out of personal and moral conviction, like what you just said, Tom, and 12% just in case AI remembers.
Well,
So if they do come back, they're going to be nice to me.
okay. Well, and one of the things I'm reading is how much energy is being used in running. It's just incredible amount of energy. I just saw a news headline about uh, I guess starting up another coal burning electricity, electric electricity production just to run at one of those buildings that houses all that information.
Yeah. So, you know, we're adding to the environmental instability by being nice to Chat GPT,
Well,
Tom.
the big question that's a bigger question is uh, how much are we by having that available to us? Even if we're not polite, how much more are we adding by simply trying to make things convenient?
Those are larger conversations, right? About how
Yeah,
we're making use of technology, and we don't see the cost. None of us are paying attention. It's not our bill, right? It's not my light
yeah,
bill.
yeah, it
uh,
is and it isn't.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so keep that in mind the next time you're using your AI. You want to train it to be nice because that's how it's learning too. It's learning response and things like that. So you're teaching it how to be in conversation and to be polite. So don't you want the AI to be nice? I mean, because when they take over again, we're going to be in a weird position. So anyway,
Yeah.
there it is.
I was thinking one of the good things about not using chat, now I know I don't have to be nice or rude. I'm not saving any or costing anything because I'm not using it.
You're doing your
I'm
part,
just
Tom.
I'm just paying the bill, whatever the expense of that is.
You're doing your part by not taking part. Good
Mm.
on you, Tom. Very good. All right, so talking about being friendly and the cost of kindness and all this stuff. I preached a sermon yesterday. I don't know if you were paying attention, Tom. I don't know. I couldn't remember if I caught you mid nap or not.
No,
Uh,
you didn't catch me yawning or anything yesterday. Every time you turned your back, that's no.
yes.
I actually
I
think I was not yawning at all.
I talked about church's community, of course, and family of God, kind of stuff I like to talk about a lot. That I think it's important. And you're talking about the barbecue and having conversations and that kind of stuff. And to me, that is I don't. I don't want to say it's a forgotten part of being church, but I don't know. A lot of times when we get into these conversations, it feels like we just want to talk about, the preaching and the ministries for the sake of doing our programs and paying our bills. And kind of what gets lost to me sometimes in our conversations is like the actual conversations and the actual friendships and the actual connections that I hope are being made in our churches, in our local congregations. We call them local congregations for a reason, right? There's a locality to them, and people are there, and those people are there for several reasons, but in part to come together, to commune together as a people that God has brought together. And so I shared an article with Tom about from Psychology Today that making friends is not natural. The idea is that we didn't really have to make friends. Our ancestors didn't have to make friends because they lived in such a way that they weren't far from family members. They weren't far from an extended community. Everybody was together. There was no moving around like there is today. I think in here it says the average American moves 12 times in their lives. Do you know how many times you've moved, Tom?
I actually am gonna have to think about that. I read that and I may be really, really close to that number. I've been on two continents and living and one of those places moved twice.
So
So
you're close to the average.
when I was in Russia, I moved from one side of town to the other side of town.
I'm probably above average in that regard. I moved a lot as a kid. Of course, I've moved several churches as an adult. My wife will tell you she's probably double the average. Her parents were Methodist ministers. They moved around all, as she was growing up, and then she married me, and we moved around. So she's been all over quite a few places. But all that movement means, well, not only you go into a new home, a new city, but like you have a new a community to be a part of. You don't have your old friends there. You don't have your family there with you that didn't move with you. And so, we didn't have to worry about that before. And when we put ourselves in these situations more and more, we realize it's kind of hard to do to make friends, and we think that's just something that maybe our junior high kids struggle with, but it's a struggle for a lot of people, adults included. And because according to Psychology Today, the article, it's not natural, right? It's something that we have to learn how to do and have a desire to make it happen, right? So let's see. There was one line in here.
Go ahead.
Where's that? Let's see, where's it at? First of all, friendship researcher Julianne Holt Lundstad. I had never heard of a friendship researcher up until I read this article, which I'm not mad at. I think I'd be a nice friendship researcher. I want to research friendship, but she has argued that there is now an epidemic of loneliness in the United States. That's not a new thing, and we've heard that before. After meta-analyzing 148 studies of health and friendship, she estimated that not having friends is as bad for your health as being a habitual smoker.
Yeah.
So we used to say that, sitting is the new smoking, but now it's not having friends is the new smoking, apparently.
One of the things I would say is it doesn't take a researcher to discover that loneliness and lack of friendship causes health issues, whether they're mental health issues or physical health issues. You just know intuitively that a person who is alone and lonely. I mean, being alone is not in fact, it's not a terrible thing. And there is a need for alone time, no matter
Sure.
whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. But not having people to interact with is, actually uh, counterintuitive or countercultural, let's say, to biblical faith, because faith is all about having a relationship with God and with others, and it's such an emphasis throughout Scripture that you cannot um, have a you can have a personal faith, but you cannot have a private faith in the sense of just I can do this on my own. It's just and I would say impossible. It's just impossible to have a vital faith and relationship with God that is exclusive of other people.
Having a vital faith, yeah, and then that part of John Wesley, the social gospel. That's part of what he meant, that you can't do this by yourself, right? And I forget what it's called, but I think there's somebody did a, I don't want to call it a complete Bible version. I don't remember if it's that, but so anywhere, particularly in the New Testament, where all the times it says you, and it says you, and we read it as you, and we're thinking, oh, me, but actually it's in Texas language, it me y'all, and so the Bible edition, anytime it's meant for like you as a group, it says y'all. So we understand it's not just you, it's y'all, it's us, it's everybody, right? Because so much of Scripture is not just speaking to you, it is, yeah, speaking to us as a collective group. And so yeah, like you said, there's a there's a faith that I have, that I practice, that is personal to me, but it can't be separate from the faith that I practice apart from the community that God has made me be a part of. So
Yeah, well, and we tend to be better Christians when we do it alone, at least in our mind, kind of like we're better parents until we are one.
yeah. Yeah. I'm really good at being Christian when I don't have to deal with other people.
Yeah, exactly. I
I can
know.
love them real easy when they're not next to me.
Yeah, I'm a child raising expert, as a
Yes.
single
Oh yes, the good old days when we were child experts and we knew how to raise perfect children. Okay. So then, Tom, what could be, what should be, if we know people are experiencing this kind of loneliness, we understand the value and the necessity of community, of real connection. How can the church be a place for those connections to happen, for those connections to be nurtured and sustained? What is the church's role in being part of the draw back to uh, more faithful, connected community?
Well, one of the things in the article it talks about is when in earlier days when people were basically limited to their tribal connection, and they gave the example of a people group in Papua New Guinea, and the study there is that everybody in that community, they are blood relatives, that
Sure.
someone born into that community lives, basically next door to the aunts and uncles and cousins, and so the connection was a community centered around family, and now I was talking about interests, personal interests. The young man who grows up in an Iowa farm community, and everybody there is farming and making their livelihood out of farming, and they talk about farm and weather and all of those things, and yet he's interested in architectural engineering, And so what's going to happen is because of his interest, he's going to go to a university that caters to his interest. And then after he gets his degree, he's going to go to a place where he can exercise that, that particular thing. And so there's this sense of the interest, and people with similar interests will be drawn toward that, and then they'll be formed around a new community, new friendships, and I think that idea of forming community around an interest is helpful in recognizing that within the church community. Almost always, we start sending out feelers as to I meet someone and I talk about what I'm interested in, whether it's a faith issue or aquariums or baseball, or what church do you go to? Oh, you don't have a church. Can I invite you to my home church? Just building around those common interests. Now, it's taking those common interests, kind of like what you're doing right now. Is that starting this Wednesday or a week from Wednesday?
Next
The
week.
chosen. Okay.
Yeah, next week.
So you're taking something that is actually a cultural phenomenon, the chosen, and you're building a community around that, which is centered around faith in Jesus Christ, and so that is the initial draw. We're coming together around something that we enjoy and has faith application, and now we're going to take that general interest and go a little deeper so that we can take what we've seen and now talk about it, but then at the end of the day, hopefully apply it in a way that moves us closer to community as followers of Christ and closer in the overall community of Corpus Christi as faithful followers of Jesus Christ.
So, what do you think gets in the way, Tom, sometimes in our churches where we don't allow that to happen? Like, why does it seem like that kind of what you're talking about, that kind of connection seems secondary to a lot of other stuff? What gets in the way?
Well, one of the things for me personally, I have to process when it happens and what else is going on in my life, and so scheduling it and for me to be a part of the Wednesday 10 o'clock group, I have a connection with a couple of friends where we meet at that time, and I'm going, I would like to be a part of the one community, but in order to be a part of what you're doing, I have to set aside or move another piece of my schedule into
Yeah.
something else. And so, I think I think we have our routines, and at times we weigh the value of this versus that, and I don't think it's disinterest as much as it is. We live in a very, even as a retired person, a very packed schedule. I have more flexibility generally, but there's 2 days I don't have much flexibility, and that's today, Monday, and then Wednesday, just simply because of that other commitment. And we've
Mm.
already moved that group, that connection from Thursday to Wednesday because we found it was interrupted a lot on Thursday. Two other pastor friends who generally have most of their meetings at that time on Thursday. But with pastors, it always gets jumbled.
Yeah. So I was having this conversation with someone not too long, maybe even last week. We think about a lot of the sort of, for lack of a better word, traditional, ministry things that churches would do, a couple of decades ago. Even before that, they were designed for, run by people who were available during the day, right? And there were more people available during the day, during the week. And of course, that has changed. And so, the church, um, we kind of still hang on to some of that stuff. We wonder why people don't participate. Well, because things have changed, right? People aren't available during the day anymore. People are working different kinds of jobs. And so to hold on to those same kinds of schedules, the same kinds of meetings, it's not a losing battle, but it certainly can feel like it sometimes. And so there's some adapting that needs to happen, where we need to be willing to say, well, maybe this doesn't have to be on this day, this morning, or even in this place, right? I've shocked a few people when I have, offered the grand novel, wink, wink, a gesture of, having Bible study somewhere else besides the church. And it's almost like, well, how does that even happen? I mean, it happens the same way, right? But there's got to be a willingness to, you know, pursue what we want to do, is establishing these connections and growing together. And if a schedule changes, well, then we figure that out, instead of just holding on to this sort of model of what we think is supposed to happen. So creating times that are good for people, creating spaces, giving people permission, right? Or even just the idea of knowing that they can do this, it can happen in another place besides, church facilities. And so, um, yeah, that's part of what we want to do. We have different things now for different people because things are different, right? It's as simple as that. And so,
Well,
how,
well, I was going to say one of the things I know, if you want to be, if you want the community connection, then we in the church have to take the initiative. It's not we need to wait for the community to come to us. We have to go to the community. And I know as a pastor, I've gotten in trouble. Well, one of the complaints that I've experienced over the years is the fact that I would be at a local. I would do my due diligence, my study, not in the office, but in one of the local restaurants, one of the local hangouts, and I got to know people. I got to know people who were not a part of the church, whose
sure.
brother had, mental illness issues, or whose sister had just lost a good friend, or you can just go through the all the issues. And I've experienced this here, you know, as a follower of the Hooks and a follower of Jesus Christ. I've had more times of praying with people, for people at the ballpark than I have at church. And it's not that I don't pray for people at church. It's just that I've had more personal opportunities in the one place, because when I see people, I see them pretty much all week, as opposed to the church where I see them uh, on Sunday morning, or special times like the barbecue, preparing things for the barbecue this past week. Those are not consistent. They don't happen day after day after day. Whereas when the Hooks are in town, I'm there 5 out of the 6 games. I've given up Friday because I'm building my continuing to maintain and build my relationship with my wife, and she asked for me to give up an evening, and in the past I went to every game every week, or every week they were in town.
There's some intentionality behind that, but also you're saying like Sunday morning. I mean, Sunday morning is so structured, right? It has its own agenda, by and large, that you can't converse the way you can at a baseball game, or around a dinner table, right? It's not polite to have conversation while the preacher is preaching, right? It's just that does it's not very conducive for that.
Except when you ask us to, and Well, and we need that structure. We need the,
Sure, we need that. Yeah.
basically we need the skeleton of that to have the body uh firm and moving in the same direction. We don't have to guess what comes next. While at the same time allowing a little bit of breath to come into those moments, and especially during, well, our prayer time at Kelsey is you just never know when you might be singing happy birthday, or when you're hearing something for the first time that's a joy or a struggle.
Yeah.
So that's where, because it's structured, if you're a regular part of a worshiping congregation that allows those kind of things to happen, then you have the opportunity to speak, and it's not an embarrassment or anything like that. It's just a natural flow of what's already been.
And then also teaching people, take advantage of, the downtime. So like service is over, stick around for a few minutes, right? To see somebody, talk to somebody, welcome somebody, maybe, right? And then also something I've come to appreciate. Some people have this gift that others of us have to work at to try to, be good at. It's not even just welcoming, but actually connecting people. So we had somebody new come to the church yesterday. She had been there once before, a few months back, but someone, and I had met her, but then someone later on brought her to me and said, John, this is so and so, blah blah blah. So it's not that person didn't just welcome the new person. That person then said, well, let's make sure I connect you to somebody else. The pastor, yes, but I'm sure there were other people too, that that new person meets through somebody who's able to say, hey, do you know so and so? They were sitting right next to you, and they live whatever, they do whatever, or you know, once a buck, always a buck. That's kind of stuff, right? And so that connection that we can help create instead of just people showing up. We fulfill our agenda and then we kind of move on about our day, but taking advantage of those times. I was telling Tom, I don't know if he recognized, but on Easter, we our church, has the courtyard and there's a cross and it's decorated and everybody always takes their pictures, and there's always a group of friends who they went to youth group together, went to camp together, all that kind of stuff. And every Easter they take their picture, and they've been friends for that long, and it's been a friendship that was established in church, and church has been a big part of sustaining that friendship, and their connection. I feel like that's if we can do that, can keep that up and continue that, that is a true witness to the community of God that God wants to create. It's not just people coming to hear messages and giving money. It's connecting with other people as well. As they're connecting with God, they're connecting to one another too.
So, and just for those who heard John say once a buck, always a buck, we're not talking about beer and we're not talking about dollars. Locally, there's Miller Buccaneers. And so that, unless you were talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, no.
No. Yeah.
But I think of, for me, the biggest transition was moving from my elementary years, first grade through fifth grade, to from Portland, Texas to Victoria, Texas. And that, at the end of my grade school years, we moved into my middle school years. And that was a huge and difficult transition, because I went from a smaller city. In fact, back then it was really just a town, to a city, and I remember that it was the fact that mom and dad had always maintained a habit of going to the Methodist church, and we happened to go to a smaller one of the smaller of the two churches. There were several. Actually, there were four Methodist churches, and back then they were Methodist churches when we moved. One was Hispanic, one was African American, and then two uh, primarily white churches. And we went to the smaller of the two, and it was in that setting where I got to, I met people that became lifelong friends. In fact, you and I were talking about in a couple of weeks, my brother and I are heading up to Oklahoma, and we'll be meeting with a couple of friends that are from those years. And both of those friends were very much a part of the moment when our youth group experienced revival, and it wasn't. So we had this great speaker come in, and this great moment, and all of us were suddenly ushered into faith. It's like we had a period of about 72 hours where individually we came to Christ. And then after that, it was us working out what it meant to be followers of Jesus Christ together. It's kind of like we were born, and then we were learning to speak and walk, and or talk and walk in this new faith together. So that was significant. The church was very significant in that transition time from being very connected with my friends in Portland to I don't know anyone. Help me somehow get to know others.
Yeah, and so we want people to come to our churches, new people, and we want to reach out. I think that's great, but there's also the flip side of that is that when they come, don't let them be lost. Don't let them feel like they're alone. Let it be a place where they can do exactly what you're talking about. Who knows, right? And but whether it's something as sort of, I don't want to say dramatic as that, but sort of life transforming and enduring, or whether it's just a connection that gets them through a season, even, right? That there's nothing wrong with that. We get messages every once in a while from people who they were here. I'm using Kelsey as an example just because I've been here so long. People who had, they were here and they were going through something while they were here, and we were able to connect with them and best we could help them what they were going through. And then they moved, they left, they went somewhere else. But every once in a while, it's you helped me through a time, right? And I appreciate that. Those are the kinds of, I don't know, those are the kind of expectations I want churches to have of what they can be for people.
Yeah, and those are the stories that we should be sharing with one
You're
another.
exactly right. Yeah.
If you come through that and the church has been significant in your life, then make it known. Those are the testimonies. It's life being lived out together, and hearing about how life lived out together has made a difference in your life or in my life. And like I said, just in this conversation, I'm telling you, the church made a difference in my middle school years, because without it, I don't know how long it would have taken to adjust to being in a new city, in a new area. So, the other thing you mentioned is the person who saw someone, met someone, then took that someone and introduced them to someone else, and possibly several someone else's. And I know when I was associate pastor at Wimberley United Methodist, we and they still do have that type of person who that was just her natural gifting of connecting people. Even if you came in as a guest, helping you navigate and sit with someone, introducing you to someone, so that you're like the junior high or a high school new person in school, and it's like there's a person when you walk into the cafeteria who welcomed you, who tells you his or her name and asks your name, and then doesn't sit with you, but leads you to a table and introduces you, and then and the
Sure.
next thing you know, you're sitting and you're comfortable. You're not holding your tray, wondering, is there anybody who's going to let me sit down? And honestly, even to this day, you know, there's a little bit of that when we have church gatherings. Am I going to be able to sit with someone and talk with them at the breakfast table or at the barbecue or at the, we have, one of the gifts of Kelsey, like you said yesterday, is the power of brisket.
We have
And
the power brisket on our side. Yes.
and breakfast tacos and all of that. But the food is a blessing that actually leads to the greater blessing, and that's sitting and getting to know brothers and sisters in Christ.
Amen. Amen. So we'll wrap it up with that because just because we're out of time, not because we couldn't talk about it more, because I think we can and we should, because this is one of those important things. At church, it's not a place we go to. It's not, the religious store where you get your religious fix. It's a community that you belong to, that you take part in, and that you form these kind of relationships that are important. And we hope that our leaders can model this in the way we talk and connect with each other, and the way what we encourage each other to do as well. And that yeah, we can, people, I've had people ask me, would it be okay if I got, so and so and so and so and so and so together and we go have lunch? I'm like, well, why are you asking me that's okay? Of course you can go have lunch. You don't need my permission to go eat with somebody, right? Those those are the kind of things that we want you to do, right? And to enjoy doing, and as you bring people in and let them know that they are welcome. That's an important part of our life together. All right, Tom, be nice to Chat GPT if you ever get your computer working. Even though it costs something, it does cost something
I, I
somewhere along the line.
I'm going to stay away because I'm going to save the environment by not
Save the
using
environment. Save the environment. Okay. And
GDP.
it may cost you the, I don't know, the awkwardness or the uncomfortableness to approach somebody you don't know, or to mispronounce their name the first time, or forget their name. It may cost you that, but it's a cost well worth paying, because in the end, you make those connections that we're talking about. All right, Tom, good job, brother. I appreciate it. You and your half-size self did a full-size job.
Well, thank you. Uh, all I know is, yeah, I hear you, and I'm still looking at that big blue dot, and it's not a picture of planet Earth
So, as far as you know, you've been speaking to God.
or Chat GPT.
Yes. All right,
Well,
everyone.
I
Whatever you've been
thought
looking at, we're glad you've tuned in. Glad you're listening. Thanks for being a part of an almost perfect podcast community. Let's hear from you. How are you building relationships in your church? We want to hear about it. So until next week, till we can all be together again, have a great rest of the week, and God be with you.
am I even close to actually in the picture?
Yeah, I see you there. You must be on a phone or something.